We put the hizzy in House of Praise. Shalom. I'm the Messianic Torah dude, and this week's Torah portion is Terumah.
Let's go down when we hit the stage. The harder that the crowd begins to raise. The people in the chairs all take a stand. We're rocking and rolling for the son of man. Rocking and rolling, yeah, yeah.
Terumah, or Heave offering, comes to us from Exodus chapter 25, verse 1 through 27, verse 19. And this portion gives us a lot of details and essentially the blueprints for the tabernacle. Now it's written in the portion starting with the most holy place and radiating outwards until you get to the outer wall of the courtyard. And the Torah was written as the Lord reaching out to mankind, which is why it starts with the place where the Lord is essentially seated and works its way out into the broader community. But I wanted to look at it in sort of a reverse way, because we as people should be seeking to go in to that place where the Lord is, in our worship, in our study, in our quiet time of prayer and meditation on the Scripture. We should be seeking to, in a spiritual sense, in a mental sense, go into that most holy place so we can have that close communion with the Lord. And since the temple is a house of praise, I wanted to look at the different rooms of a house and how they reflect the different parts of the tabernacle. In Exodus chapter 27, verses 9 through 13, we kind of get some of the dimensions of the outer wall of the outer court of the temple. And this kind of symbolizes this basic knowledge of who the Lord is. This idea that we know the Lord is out there. We understand. It's the first step. In that outer wall there was an entranceway so that you could enter into that place of praise, that place of worship. And just like the front door on a house, it was the entryway into having this understanding and this close relationship with the Lord. And of course, in most houses you have an actual, like a foyer or an entryway or something like that, which is similar to the outer court of the tabernacle. This courtyard had the altar where burnt offerings were given, and it also had the washing basin. And the altar really represent the sacrifice of praise and the sacrifice of prayer that we offer. The whole point of praise and worship, and especially prayers that we memorize and recite, is that it allows us to come into this closer understanding with the Lord. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's not the final step, but it is a means for bringing us into closer fellowship with the Lord. And as we go further into this praise and this worship, we come closer and we come to a deeper understanding of the Lord. But we're still just at a basic surface level. As we go further into the tabernacle, we reach the holy place. And the holy place is where the table of the showbread, the lamp, and the altar of incense were kept. And this kind of symbolizes this place of where we have this deeper communion with God. We've moved beyond the surface stuff. And this is the point where, as we delve into the Scriptures and as we open our hearts and our minds in prayer, we start to understand things. This is where things start clicking and start making sense. This is where the Scripture transforms from being just words on a page to being sharper than any double-edged sword, rightly dividing soul and spirit. In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 through 19, it says, "For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. And I chose the living room as this example, because it's sort of the room where a lot of our interactions happen. And when you're spiritually healthy, hopefully this is going to be where you're going to spiritually live a lot. Those places where you are getting words from the Lord, where you are getting understanding when you delve into the Scripture. And the final place we end up in is the Holy of Holies. The place of the most rest, the place of the most renewal. As it says in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, where we get to and at last we have the Holy of Holies, the place of rest, the place of renewal, the place of the most intimacy with the Lord. And this renewal I'm talking about is the same thing that Rav Shaul was talking about in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, when he said, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds in Messiah Yeshua. You see, when we develop this close intimacy with the Lord, that's when we get this renewal. That's when we get that true rest in the Lord. And so hopefully, seeing this guide kind of helps you understand ways to develop deeper intimacy in the Lord, in your prayer times, in your quiet times. Because ultimately, that's the goal. The goal is to have that closeness and that intimacy with the Lord. So what are some other ways that we can help ourselves to develop more intimacy with the Lord? Let me know in the comments. And if we gave you a laugh, give us a like. And if you learned something, give us a share. I'm the Messianic Torah Dude. Shalom, and stay in the Word. Alright. As we go...
Now who's fapping? It ain't me.
I want 0. Where are you going?
Elsewhere.
You're killing me.
I'm killing you.
Yeah, this will just take 8 minutes.
Shut up. Well, the way you go.
I gotta do my
Come on.
lipstick, my hair.
You gotta keep dropping your paper and shifting your chair.
Alright.